please, ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome Georges St-Pierre? And Georges, if you want to take a seat. Rodolphe, you're going to join us on stage? You're out of this, okay. Dan Del Tondo, you're going to join on stage. And Dan's the promoter from Fast Track Events. Is Dan here? Have we lost Dan? Okay. And Glenn Twiddle from Brisbane. Glenn, you can take a seat as well. Okay.
Me and you, mate. We'll get back in the cage again.
No, I'm not having you go in that octagon again. Saw what happened last time. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being here today. Georges St-Pierre, it is fantastic to have you. Welcome to Australia. These are not your belts, so I'm just thought they'd be nice to have them. I think Rob Whittaker's signed one of them. Right? Welcome to Sports Bar here at Star, who are hosting the event today. And of course, Georges St-Pierre will be speaking at an evening with Georges St-Pierre tomorrow night here at Star, and on Saturday night in Melbourne, and Sunday night in
Brisbane. Yeah, we're gonna have some fun.
Thank you, Glenn. And ladies and gentlemen, let's get underway. Can I just ask you a couple of questions? Tell us about your trip to Australia.
Well, at my trip to Australia, I didn't know what to expect, but I know one thing. From Montreal, where I'm from, Australia is the farthest location, the furthest location that we can find on the globe, on the entire globe. So I knew it was going to be a long flight, and I had a great flight. I actually slept for the first time of my life. I slept like 8 hours on the flight. I connect to Los Angeles, and then I flew to Sydney, straight to Sydney. So I slept. I never sleep on a plane before. Like never. I'm always thinking too much, or I saw too many movies, I guess. So, and they had some turbulence, but I was able to sleep. Fantastic.
Well, I'm pleased you slept, and it's great to have you here. And you're here for a week, which is amazing. Tell us, we all know you have Dan Del Tondo joining you from Fast Track Events, who are presenting an evening with Georges St-Pierre this tomorrow night here at the Star, and on Saturday night in Melbourne. And then Glenn is promoting the event in Sydney on Sunday night. Georges, you're known as the greatest of all time. Tell us about some other greats in your life. Who's the greatest model of all time, in your opinion? Who's the greatest sports star of all time, in your opinion?
Well, there is a... I don't know if I don't really consider myself the greatest in my area, you know? Like, it's a subject that we can debate for a long time, you know? The reason is you can't be the... You know, people, sometimes I see young guys, they win the belt and they're screaming, "I'm the baddest man on the planet." I mean, there is no baddest man on the planet. Nobody is invincible. And even though you're the champion, it doesn't mean there is not another man on the planet that could beat you at that particular day, at that particular time, at that particular moment. You know, I became world champion at a certain moment, particular time and location. And the experience just humbled me, you know, because I had a lot of experience in the fighting game, and I didn't think that like that before. Now with my experience, I do know that it's a reality. But you talk about the greats. In my country, ice hockey is one of the most. It's the most popular sport. Probably, I guess for you, it's the same as rugby or IFL, yes. So for me, ice hockey, growing up as a French-Canadian kid, everybody wanted to be an ice hockey player. And one of my idols growing up was Wayne Gretzky. And I tried to emulate Wayne Gretzky in every part of the way, try to be a good role model. I tried to be a good athlete, deliver to the expectation, and I tried to be like Wayne Gretzky. I always trying to. He was the greatest hockey player of all time. So just for people know who I'm talking about.
I'm going to throw questions for the media to ask in a second. Just tell us, I've heard you talk about confidence. Tell us about confidence.
Well, confidence. People ask me sometimes, when is the most important thing for an athlete? And, or a performer, or I guess it's one of the most important thing when you're about to do something. It could be in your professional work, your field of work. But for an athlete, confidence is very important. One of my coach, John Denayer, who's actually from New Zealand, is my one of my main coach. He says to me, George, confidence and skills are the two most important things, but they go along with each other. If you got the skills, but you don't have the confidence, it's like having money in your bank account and not be able to spend it. Also, if you got the confidence, but you don't have the skills, is the same thing as having a dream, but never have the tools to be able to reach it. So if you want to do something and be successful in life, especially in sport, especially in fighting sport, in full contact sport, you need to have the confidence and have the skills. Skills, it's a combination of many things. You need to be born athletic, be born a certain way. If I would have been born with a certain handicap, maybe I would have not been able to be world champion. Genetically, I'm a good athlete. I work hard, of course. I met the right people at the right time. I've learned. I put dedication, so I learned my skills. But the confidence, sometimes people think confidence is just a natural thing. It's not. It's really not. There is different ways on working on working on your confidence. Because every time I go fight in the octagon, every title fight that I had many doubts. I was afraid. I had lack of confidence. But I found myself some tools to building up my own confidence. And like I said, when you have the confidence and the skills, that's when the magic can happen.
Questions from the audience, otherwise I'll come back to you. I want to ask about dinosaurs in a minute. Questions? Anybody got any questions? Yes.
George, can you just give us an update on your injury that saw you relinquish the middleweight belt? How are you feeling now, and do you plan to fight again?
Yeah, it's not an injury that I have. It's a medical condition. The doctor says it probably have been caused. They never really knows. This is one of these things they never really know for sure. But the theory is it's one part of it's genetic, but the other part is my last fight. I was fighting a guy who I was competing in a heaviest weight class that I normally compete at. So I followed a very severe program of diet program to trying to put on mass. Try to put on muscle weight, which had me to eat basically almost every 3 hours, and I overfeed myself like crazy. Even that at a point, sometime I was regurgitating some of the things that I have eat. I was thinking that if I'm going to fight a bigger man, I need to get bigger myself to be able to match him physically, which was a mistake. I should never have done that, but I did. And I learned from it. The fact that I force myself to eat, it's a little bit, if I make the analogy, if you have a car and you always drive your car like 100%, like crazy fast, you brake fast, you accelerate fast, your car is most likely to break. Same thing what happened with my digestive system. With the stress that I put on my body physically and also with the stress of the fight, I believe I was also probably more prompt genetically to have these kind of condition. I developed an ulcer inside my intestine. It's called a condition called ulcer colitis. It started during my training camp. And it affected me a lot, but building up to that fight with Michael Bisping was a lot of controversy. And if I would have made my condition public, probably the fight would have been pulled off. So, and that's the last thing that I wanted to. So I did some tests before the fight because I was very concerned. It was when I went to bathroom, it was a lot of blood, and I thought at one point I was going crazy. I thought maybe it was a cancer or something, but the test came back negative. So I knew it was not that. I told myself like I'm gonna have to do it. It's called a colonoscopy. They put a camera inside of you. But to be able to perform these tests, you need to take some other medication that is like laxative. It empties you completely and dehydrate you completely. And it's like not a good idea to do during a training camp. So I decided to wait and to wait after the fight to do that. So I did the fight. The fight went well. things, and I won the fight. But then after I did all the tests, the colonoscopy, and I got diagnosed with ulcer colitis. I got on medication, and I also met another doctor that made me discover time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting, Dr. Jason Fong. You can research it. He heal diabetes people and people that has cancer with fasting program. It's pretty incredible. He goes all around the world doing conference. So I had a chance to meet him, and he changed my life. And so I'm because of his help and also the medication that I had, my condition is much better right now, like almost close to 100%. However, before I sign another bout agreement, I need to be 100%. Because the minute you sign a fight, you start thinking about it, especially if you're like me. I'm a big thinker, and the stress starts. The fight starts when you sign the bout. You know, that's when the fight starts for me, mentally. So I want to make sure I'm 100%, so when I go back into a training camp, I'm healthy, and I don't have to worry about that.
Can I ask you, realistically, are you eyeing a return for next year?
Could be this year too. Yeah.
Questions? Sorry, questions?
Currently, the UFC announced Darren Till is going to be fighting Tyron Woodley for the welterweight title, but there's a bit of controversy around that because Darren Till never really made the proper weight that he needed to in his last fight when he beat Wonderboy. What are your thoughts on him getting the next title shot after the situation that he went through to try and cut the weight and missing weight by so much?
Yeah, I understand it's a very frustrating situation. And as a matter of fact that you talk about this, I was on a conference call with the Athletic Commission of New York. Chael Sonnen, Randy Couture was on it. And we had a very good discussion about that issue, the weight cut issue. And Chael Sonnen brought, I think, from what I've heard, probably the best solution because of his years of experience in wrestling. He proposed to do a weigh-in the day of the fight. So what he proposes is basically you have weigh-in like the night before the fight, like we normally do. But now because the weigh-in it's in the morning, people say, "Oh, I have more time to recuperate," so they try to cut more weight. And it's sad to say, but sometimes I'm thinking, is like, are we gonna wait someone die out there to change things? I mean, it's ridiculous. So what Chael's proposed is very smart. If you make the weigh-in the day of the event, a lot of guys, they will lose weight, but they won't lose in terms of dehydration weight. I mean, you know that if you're going to compete the same day, you can't dehydrate yourself. Like if you weigh in an hour before your competition. That's what they used to do in amateur wrestling in the United States. And do you know how many people miss weight? 0. So now it's very, very weird that in a professional sport, in a professional organization at the highest level, people miss weight. I think they need to change not the individual, they need to change the system. I think the system can be made better. I'm not saying that Chael's proposition is the best, but I think it's the best that we know of right now. I think it would be the best solution, and I think it was a great idea.
What do you think about the fact that they stripped Colby Covington of the interim belt? There's sort of a general consensus that a lot of these interim belts are being handed out left, right, and center, whereas when you were the champion, it sort of meant a lot more.
Yeah, look, man, I gotta say something that is bad, but I'm gonna say it. It's like money rules the world. You know, they need to make the fight that makes money. Sometimes one guy got hurt and he can't defend the belt. They need to move on. That's why when I got diagnosed with the ulcer colitis, I knew I could have the right to wait 12 months with the belt and walk around, get some sponsorship, make money out of it. But I'm a guy that stands for the fighters. Always been and always has. And I didn't want to do that. I don't want to put the division on hold like a lot of guys do. And that's why I relinquish it right away.
I was going to say, sort of on the notion of you know, the belts and the sport, would you say MMA is sort of a pure sport, or would you say these days it's more towards entertainment? Because when you have guys like, say, Conor McGregor coming back from a long time fighting for the belt, when you have Brock Lesnar coming back from his controversy, people understand that it is essentially prize fighting. You know, what you guys as athletes and the skills you have is undeniable. But as far as the business model, would you say MMA is a true sport, or would you say it's more entertainment these days?
It changed a lot over the year. It's a business first, of course. It's an entertainment sport. We're in the entertainment world. I'm an entertainer first. Then I'm a fighter. We need to understand that. Because why I'm able to do this is because people want to get entertained. They pay their money, same as an actor, same as a WWE, a boxer. We're athlete, we're basketball, we're entertainer. The kind of entertainment you choose to watch, it's up to the audience. All right? A lot of people, sometimes they disrespect the sport of mixed martial art. Oh, it's too violent. It's okay. Don't watch it. Watch another sport. It's up to the audience. But we're entertainers. And because we're entertainers, this business is directed by, the decisions are made for money, of course. Especially, I believe, since UFC have been sold, you know, now they had a big debt to pay. And they have to take care of business. I know it's frustrating sometimes, and it is, and I realize it. But I think it needs to be a mix of both. You know, I think you can't just go one way or go the other way. It has to be a mix of both, and I understand that.
Is the CM Punk Brock Lesnar thing maybe too far, or maybe are we looking for that balance?
In terms of Brock Lesnar, is very decorated wrestler. And he was world champion before. Of course, he got suspended because of performance-enhancing drug, and right away he's back for a title shot. That's why people is complaining. This I understand. But in terms of his pedigree as a fighter, as a martial artist, I consider wrestling, boxing as a martial art as well. He's a well-decorated athlete, and he proved his skill before. In terms of CM Punk, I think I don't see any problems if you want to put, for example, two celebrities. Let's say you want to fight Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Steven Seagal in UFC. No problem. No problem. I'm game to. I'm all for it. I'm really all for it. Or this hockey player goon against this NFL guy. No problem.
In the UFC as well.
In the UFC, I wouldn't mind. I would do it. It changed over the year because before I remember to fight in UFC. It was something, like it's not everybody that could fight in UFC. Now the roster is so big, like a lot of people fight in UFC, and maybe they should not have been there. You know what I mean? Back in the day, it was, if you were part of UFC, you were the elite of the elite in your sport. Now, sometimes you could be the elite, but it's like a reality show too. You need someone that's gonna sell ticket, and I understand that. So the world has changed, and I think we need to evolve with it. The sport has changed. It became more mainstream. And to attract more mainstream people, you need to have more mainstream athletes. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. But let's not confuse ourselves of who's who. You know what I mean?
Was the Floyd Mayweather-Conor McGregor a joke fight?
For me, I don't think it was a joke. I think it was an entertainment event. People ask me before, who you think gonna win it? I predicted exactly the way it happened. I said, Conor will be very cautious in the beginning. He will download his data. Floyd will be very cautious in the beginning. Will download Conor's data and then he will pick him apart. That was my prediction, and that's pretty much a prediction of every people that know the sport of boxing or mixed martial art. Because I'm a mixed martial artist first, but I've sparred boxing with pro boxer. We know that's not our game. Some of us are more competent than others in that game, but that's not our specialty. Same thing would have happened if you do a wrestling match with an Olympian in wrestling, or a judo match with a judo Olympian. It's the same thing. You take a generalist fighting a specialist. It would be the same thing if I would say the decathlon champion, make him race 100 meter with Usain Bolt. The chance that he wins are pretty tiny. But it is a race that you will tune in to watch. I would, you know. It's the same thing in this matter.
So people will tune in to watch you versus Conor McGregor. Will that happen?
I don't know. I think now Conor is gonna fight Khabib Nurmagomedov. So
okay, but
we'll
after that, if you were
well,
both
after,
healthy, would you promote the fight?
Look, look, if it happened, if it's a good deal is put on the table, why not? No problem. You know what I mean? I don't reject any possibility, but you know, if you make if you know, there's a lot of if, and to tell you the truth, I believe Khabib has more chance to win that fight than Conor. Conor has one way to win the fight. It will be if you catch him on the way in, standing up. Khabib, I think, has more chance to win. He can win by submission on the ground. He can win by ground and pound. If he goes to decision, the chances are very likely that is Khabib that's gonna win. I see more ways to win from Khabib than I see from Conor.
Okay, use your skills and your brain now and tell me, you're 100% fit this time next year, and there's a fight between you and Conor McGregor. Who would win?
It's me.
That was the answer.
Of course, 100%.
No, that's fine. That's good.
I do. As a fighter, like I said, is confidence, and it's not. Like I said, people sometimes they say, "Oh, are you afraid? That's why you don't want to fight this guy. Are you afraid to fight this guy?" I'm like, I would be afraid to fight everybody, even if it's a midget of standing. I would be afraid. I would be afraid. What do I if I fall? What happened if he's stronger than I thought he is, and I make a mistake and I'm always afraid. But being afraid, it's an irrelevant question. It's relevant for the general public that doesn't understand the mind of a fighter. But if you're a fighter and you know you're going to fight afraid, it's the question of are you afraid? It's irrelevant. Being afraid, it's something that can go bad or something that can go well for me. It could be bad if the fear make me lack confidence. However, if I'm very afraid, that make me more focused. That is so important. That is happening right now because I'm afraid. I need to be sharp. It make me work harder, be trained with the fear that my opponent is training harder than me. Now then, the fear is a good thing. So when I fight, I know I'm afraid. And I always thought of myself when I was younger, I was like, oh, the fear will disappear at one point. And I thought it would, but it never did. And the opposite happened because every fight got bigger and bigger. So I was more and more afraid. However, one thing I changed is that I've learned how to deal with it better with my experience. And I know now that it is normal to be afraid. I'm not afraid to admit that I'm afraid. Like a lot of fighters are, yeah, I'm not afraid. No, I'm afraid. I'll be afraid. Even if I fight him. If I fight everybody, I'll be afraid. But it's irrelevant. Because no matter if I'm afraid or not, when it's going to be time to walk the walk and do my job, I will do it, regardless.
Last questions. Yes?
You did fight a Matt Serra, and he did win. But if you could just tell us, who was the toughest fighter you've ever fought?
The toughest fight? that I ever win. The toughest is different than the toughest guy. The tough, I believe it's Michael Bisping. The toughest fight that I had was my first fight with BJ Penn. Yeah, and I believe BJ Penn in his prime was probably the fighter that I fought was skill-wise the most skilled athlete, the most skilled martial artist that I ever fight. He was like the perfect fighter. He was good everywhere. He had very little weaknesses. The fight that I got, if you talk of toughest fight in terms of damage that I get the most hurt, it's my fight with Carlos Condit. I got kicked in the head and I had to go to hospital after to add a vein in my head that kind of explode when I get kicked in the head when I got the. So that's the fight that I was pretty much damage-wise the most damage with Carlos Condit. But when you say tough, it depends what you mean in terms of tough. I try to answer your question in different ways. I hope you understand. Thank you.
Just wanted to ask you, George, you spoke a little bit before about the greatest of all time and how there's sort of no such thing. But in recent years, someone who's sort of been in that discussion is Demetrious Johnson. What did you think about him losing this past weekend and sort of how this affects his legacy? Because that win streak of his is something that was frequently, I guess, discussed and pointed to when talking about him.
It's a very good. You see, I was in the plane when this happened. I was on the plane coming here. And I remember I turned on my cell phone and all my text message pop up. Boop, 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 boop. Demetrious Johnson lost. And another upset happened in the world of boxing. I don't know if you noticed. Sergey Kovalev lost to Eleder Alvarez, who's a friend of mine. And I was so happy. But I was so sad for Demetrious Johnson, but so happy for my friend Eleder Alvarez. So that's when I said nobody is invincible. Even though you're the best, you can win. It doesn't mean if the fight will happen, it would have happened today in Australia or 3 days ago or a week ago in another location, Demetrious Johnson would have lost. I mean, I still consider right now as the best fighter. Maybe he's not anymore. Maybe he still is. I think he still is. I haven't seen the fight.
Better than John Jones?
I think so. I think so, because he never got caught for nothing wrong, you know, in terms of performance-enhancing drug and things like that. So his legacy is perfect. Losing, sometimes you lose, you know, it depends how we, you know, I think we're going to see maybe the best of Demetrious Johnson or the worst in his next fight. I believe when you lose, the best out of you can come out, or the worst. Because it takes a certain force of character. How he's going to rebound from it. Everybody can be champion. Everybody is doing well when things go well. How is it when things go bad? I think we're going to see another way. And I think it could be very good for Demetrious Johnson because it could show his charisma. When I start to be more popular in my career, it's not when I was winning. It's after my first loss with Matt Hughes. That's when my fan base started to build up stronger. Because people in real life, they lose. They lose their job. They fail. They don't succeed all the time. And when they see someone like a champion failing, they can relate to this. And I think it can make Demetrious Johnson way more accessible, way more charismatic than if he keep going and become, like, stay the perfect fighter, human being that he is, so to speak, you understand? So I believe it could be a good thing for him. You know, I'm saying that also to encourage him, but it's also the truth. I believe the best, he can become a winner from that situation. He might not realize it right now, like I didn't realize when I lost to Matt Hughes and Matt Serra, but well, now I realize it's probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I wish him the best to him as well.
Georges St-Pierre, before we leave, I'm taking you off UFC. Tell us, you're an expert on dinosaurs and paleontology. You did a two-part.
I am not an expert. I like it, but there's difference between an expert
the
and...
Discovery Channel paid a fortune, I presume, to fly you around the world to do a two-part series on dinosaurs. So you must be cleverer than most of us here. Tell us what your passion and your love of dinosaurs is all about.
Well, yeah, I love paleontology. And like you say, you talk about the dinosaurs because the dinosaurs have roamed the planet for much, much, much longer than human being has. And the reason why I like to study paleontology it makes us understand the past. You know, it make us learn. I mean, it make us learn from the past. And if we learn from the past, we can understand the present and predict better the future. So that's why I like it. That's
a good answer. And I think at the Australian Museum here in Sydney, Rodolphe wants to go up near there at some stage. There's a dinosaur skeleton there, a giant one. It'd be great to get a picture of you with your dinosaur skeleton.
If it's a giant skeleton, like you say, does it have a long neck?
Long neck. What is it?
Long neck. It's called a sauropod. There's
I
different kind of sauropod. There's like the titanosaurs that are normally the biggest sauropod, and there's different kind of titanosaurs. So I would need to see it to know what it is.
I'll find a picture for you.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and thank Georges St-Pierre. He will be appearing an evening with Georges St-Pierre tomorrow night, Tuesday night, here at the Star in the Event Centre. He'll be appearing on Thursday night in Melbourne at the MCC. And Glenn, where is he in Brisbane?
At the Brisbane Convention Centre on Sunday.
And if you want to get tickets still available. They're from $69 at gsplive.com.au. And we're going to do some one-on-ones to get us going. Should we sit down? Adrian Warren from AAP, you around? Do you want to come and sit down with Georges St-Pierre? And we'll be news.com.au, do that, and we'll do some photos straight after that. Yeah, okay. And relax for 5 minutes, and we can relax now. Thank you.
And I'll get my coffee after a long flight, and jet lag is going to be good.
Okay. Rodolphe is at the coffee.
There we go.
Okay.
Man, that made you sit through all that without your coffee.
Keep me wide awake.